Hi again, this is Dan Ritchie, developer of Project Dog Waffle Howler. I'd like to show some of the lighting techniques we've used in 3D Designer to create some of those wonderful landscapes we've been doing as example imagery for version 8.2. We've already created a landscape using fractal noise. We used color curves to get these nice peaks out of these fractal noise features, and we've already created a texture using the swap image and some of the displacement modes that we covered in a earlier tutorial. Now we're going to work on some lighting. As you see here, we have some very generic looking lighting. Looks like just ambient noise, ambient light, not coming in from anywhere in particular. It might be like directly overhead or something to that effect. But we want to make a more realistic, but also a much more dramatic looking light. Something that doesn't look like you're playing a video game would be nice. We're going to make something like a sunset, I think, in this one. But more importantly, we're going to use some complementary, not only colors, but some complementary lighting. For example, rim lighting. You might have one color light highlighting one side of this object and another color light highlighting the other side to really bring out the detail and the depth and the character of these textures and surfaces and shapes we're working with. So I'm going to start by first getting rid of this second light. We're only going to concentrate on the first light. I'm going to do that by reducing the light range down to 0 on that second light. We're going to concentrate only on the first light. I'll start by moving the zenith. If the zenith were at 0, our light would be directly overhead. But I don't want it that. I want it to be off in the distance, like the sun is way off in the distance. So I'm going to move it out a bit. I'm going to change the light range up so we can still see the light. And now I'm going to move the azimuth. That sort of rotates the light around a center point so that our light is behind us or off to one side perhaps. If we're behind us, we get something like this, a very backlit scene. If I change the altitude now of the light, it'd be like the sun were going down behind us. I want to change the azimuth a little bit so that we have a little bit more of a rim light, like this. So we're seeing some light, at least some of that light. And I'm going to put the altitude up just slightly so we can actually see it. Not quite that much, but almost that much. And I'm going to fine tune this until I get exactly the way I want it. Right about there, I think. And now that we've done that, I'm going to go ahead and turn this light off and work on that second light. By off, I mean I'm going to change the light range down to nothing. We're still seeing a little bit of something on there, but that's mostly the specularity. We could turn that off if we wanted to, but I'll just not worry about it. Alright, and next I'm going to work on the second light and do the same thing we did with the first, only have it show up on the opposite side. So I'll change the zenith. Let me bring the light range up so we can see it. I'll change the altitude down, and I'll rotate the azimuth until that is sort of a rim light on the opposite side from what we were doing before, or it might be like a little bit of a fill light. So that's our second light. Now I'm going to bring the first light back in so we can see them both. So as you can see there, we have one light on this side and one light on that side. Right now it's not very interesting looking at it. Even now though, we brought a lot more depth out by having those rim lights, but you can't really tell the difference between the two lights. So I'm going to use two different colored lights. For the first light, I'm going to use a deep orange. You're able to use really deep, intense colors because when they blend on screen, two complementary colors are going to become one light, kind of whitish color. So don't worry about using too much color in this. A lot of color is a good thing. I'm going to use sort of a bluish green on the second color. Somewhere like that. And like I said, as we kind of blend these together, by say changing this azimuth a little bit more, In fact, if they were together, if the azimuth were the same on both, you'd get more or less a white light, like you can see there. But I'm going to move them to the opposite sides of the object. One will be a highlight and the other will be sort of a rim light, or a complementary rim light. Anyways, and I'm getting close to what I'm looking for now. I might change this orange color down a little bit to more of a yellowish orange. Not quite as red. And that is basically what I was looking for. One thing we haven't done yet is added that fog in, so I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of fog into that. And that will give us some appearance of having depth. Like this isn't a tabletop model. There's a couple miles between us and that peak in the distance. We don't want to overdo it and make it look like it's underwater, but we need some of that in there anyways. So I'll put it at about there. And now we're starting to more or less look like a mountain range. One thing I've done is made these mountains a little bit too tall. They're unnatural looking. So I'm going to adjust that down a bit. Even that's pretty unnatural, but we do want to have some dramatic quality, some artistic license here. So I'm going to have them a little taller than an actual mountain range might be. That is more or less what we've set out to do. We've created a very much deeper looking, much more interesting looking, with the appearance of the shapes are much more pronounced by using these complementary lights. And that depth cue has given us, the fog has given us more of a depth to the image. It looks like the image is a couple of miles across instead of a couple of inches across or a couple of feet across from that fog we've used. And those are just a few of the things we can do with lighting to improve the realism of a shot. There are yet more things we can do. Say two lights is just not enough for you. You want to have, say, 4 lights. Well, we can do that as well. Just remember, this is a paint program. We can always make changes to something later. We can make 2 images and add them together, for example. Since they are lights, in fact, just adding them together would give us the mathematically correct results. Just remember that the sky in there will have to be taken out for this particular exercise. Otherwise, you would be adding those 2 skies back together. So I'll make that black for now. Let me hit OK to render this. I'll use a little bit of anti-aliasing to smooth out those jagged edges that we're seeing a little bit. And let me store a copy of this under Image, Store Image Copy. And that's the first pass. We're going to go and redo that. Let me hit undo to go back to our fractal noise that we had, that we created the 3D object from in the first place. That's still in the undo buffer. I'll go back to transform 3D designer. And I'll be very careful not to hit any of the heading, pitch, bank, or camera zoom buttons, because we don't want to change our camera location. All we want to change is our lights. So I might change the light colors. Etc., etc. And I might change their positions, their locations in the 3D space. This might be a fill light now, for example. Might change the altitude and all that. And I'll do the same with the second light. When we add these together, we'll have basically effectively 4 lights in the scene then. That might be too much. But let me go ahead and hit OK to that. I'll store a copy of that as well. And since we have these stored, now I can go back to that original image that we'd rendered, go to combine and add. That will actually add the two lighting effects we've done together into this same shot. In fact, you can do it several times. That will actually multiply the amount of light we've had in that. That's just a few of the things you can do to create unique lighting effects. Say if that wasn't to our interest, we actually store a copy of that as well. You could equally use the ability to merge or cross dissolve between two images to get the same result or the same type of result if adding's not to your liking. Let me undo this and go back to the fractal noise. Go to transform 3D designer, and if you didn't want that really psychotic neon look, you could always use a different technique. Be very careful again not to press this heading picture bank. That would change the location of the camera or any of the altitude, or that would change the geometry in there. But we're only changing the lighting. Let me get back to something like what we had originally with the rim lights. That's too much. Let's see. There we go. And make this a little more of an orange color. And we also originally had a sky color in here. Okay to that. Press the OK button to render it. Let me store a copy of that. Undo to go back to our fractal noise. This is another way we can combine several images together to create more unique lighting effects. Let me do the same thing I did before, but maybe make a fill light in there that's sort of a warmer color, and change the azimuth so it's filling more of the scene like that. And I'll hit OK to that. And now I'll go to this image I just created previously, and instead of adding them together, I'll average them together. I'll do that by clicking on that image. That'll bring the original back in, and I'll go to Filter, Fade Last Action, and I'll cross dissolve them. As you can see there, I can dissolve between one and the other, and I want something in between, and that's starting to look kind of nice. It's a little weird in the blue range, so I might have to take it off a little bit one side or the other, or I might have to make some kind of adjustment afterwards. But as you can see, by averaging these two scenes together, we've taken advantage of having the ability to have more than just two lights. We have now the ability to have 4 lights, or even more if we use more layers or more images that way. But those are just some of the things we've learned that we can do to get better results or higher quality renders out of this 3D designer, creating more dramatic lighting. That's one of the biggest ways you can really sell the realism or the artistic quality of a particular shot. There are also lighting filters, the ability to adjust the color or the hue saturation value. One thing I like to try out is the auto balance filter. This can really dramatically alter the colors, and in this case it's making it look like the Grand Canyon or something that I've to something in that realm. If this doesn't produce the exact result you want, you can also use that fade last action to get somewhere between what you had originally and the what you just used to create. Use that soft contrast or that auto contrast to create. Somewhere in between the two is really what I'm looking for. This reminds me of photographs you've seen of the Grand Canyon, perhaps, or west paintings of the West, I guess you could say. And we've really gone a long way from that opening shot we had with the really generic video game looking lighting, the one direction omnidirectional light that we had originally. This is sort of like a sunset where you'd have these deep shadows and these really vibrant oranges. You could use any color you wanted to, of course, but those are a few of the things we've tried to experiment with. And hope you've enjoyed the tutorials. Hope you'll enjoy the program. We're certainly having a blast with it. We should be releasing soon. We're going into release candidate state shortly, and that's about all for now. So thanks for watching. Thank you.